Pontiac referred to the 10th generation Bonneville as luxury with attitude, being significantly revamped with advancements in design, engineering, and technology. The Bonneville served as the flagship sedan for the Pontiac division. Being available in 3 flavors, the Bonneville was able to appeal to a wide range of demographics. There were more conservative versions offering a comfy ride and more pumped up versions offering more power and balanced handling to performance-minded individuals. In this episode, we're going to take a closer look at the 10th generation Pontiac Bonneville and how it helped maintain Pontiac's status as General Motors' excitement division. So grab a Dr. Pepper, kick back, and let's get down to the nitty-gritty. The 9th generation Pontiac Bonneville made a public debut on February 8, 1991 at the 1991 Chicago International Auto Show, eventually going on sale to the public in July 1991 for the 1992 model year. The design of this particular model dates back to 1988, with John Folden being responsible for the approved design. In late 1995, revisions were made to the design. These revisions would show up for the following model year's mid-cycle refresh. Things like the tail lamps, headlamps, grille, and lower body cladding, amongst other details, were revised. As mentioned earlier, John Folden was overall responsible for the 9th generation's design. However, it was Wayne Cherry who was responsible for the mid-cycle refresh. Wayne Cherry's mid-cycle refresh design was submitted and approved back in 1993, 2 years after the 9th generation went on sale. Cherry's mid-cycle design possessed a few subliminal styling cues that hinted at the design of a future Bonneville. During this time, the design process for a 10th generation Bonneville was already underway. 1996. The design for the 10th generation Bonneville was submitted and approved. Wayne Cherry, as we mentioned earlier, was responsible for the mid-cycle refresh of the 9th generation Bonneville. He was now also responsible for the overall design of the 10th generation. Cherry envisioned a full-size sedan, one with animalistic headlamps, and one that was low-slung and had graceful, flowing lines, while simultaneously having a sporty character. Cherry's interpretation of the new Bonneville will be long and low, with a steeper rigged windshield. The design of the new generation took a few styling cues from Cherry's mid-cycle refresh 9th generation model, most notably in the rear. The new 10th generation tail lamp design will be an evolution of the ones found on the mid-cycle refreshed 9th generation. The 10th generation would take the front fascia of the 9th generation and evolve it, particularly on the higher trim level models. The wheelbase will be stretched an additional 2 inches, and the new model will continue the utilization of the GM 3800 pushrod V6 engine. The new Bonneville was determined to stand out from its similar platform mates by offering a combination of power, handling, not to mention luxury. Also, the boldness of the new 10th generation was created in an attempt to hopefully restore strong sales. Simply put, Cherry was tasked to create a full-size sedan, one that possessed attitude, for GM's self-declared excitement division. This new 10th generation Bonneville model was slated to enter production later in the decade, sometime prior to the year 2000. 1999. In March of this year, the new 10th generation Bonneville entered production. Production would take place at Lake Orion, Michigan, via Orion Assembly, a 4.3 million square foot General Motors vehicle assembly plant. Going on sale this year, late 1999, the new for 2000 Bonneville hit the market, this time with a much more aggressive design, with advancements in tech and engineering. Without a doubt, Wayne Cherry definitely came through with the new Bonneville styling, with Pontiac dubbing it as luxury with attitude. The new eye-catching full-size sedan now sat atop GM's G platform. However, GM continued to designate it as the H platform. The latest G platform boasted an increase in torsional rigidity as much as 62%, while bending resistance increased more than 20%. Remaining faithful with Pontiac's wide track tradition, it sported the widest overall track in its competitive class at 62.6 inches up front and 62.1 inches out back. Really, the only thing that was essentially a carryover was the powertrain. Both the standard as well as the higher end supercharged versions of the 3800 V6 had gotten minor revisions. That wasn't a bad thing, however, since this particular GM power plant had a well-known reputation for being durable while providing reliable power and decent efficiency. The sole transmission was an automatic, being General Motors' 4-speed unit, the 4T65E. Buick's LeSabre was similar, sharing the Bonneville's underskin design, but of course had its own design language and did not offer a supercharged model. The Buick's sole engine was the naturally aspirated Series 2 3800 V6. Another feature for the new Bonneville was the augmenting of an integrated chassis control system for the SSEI trim level. The feature, otherwise known as GM StabiliTrak Stability Control System, has sensors that monitor steering, wheel speed, and yaw angle, which activates the brakes during aggressive maneuvers to increase vehicle stability and reduce the chance of a spin or skid. Speaking of trim level, there were a total of 3 available for the Bonneville: the SE, SLE, and the aforementioned SSEI. The SE sported its own unique, more conservative front end, which gave it a clean appearance. The SLE wore an aggressive fascia, identical to that of the SSEI. The SE trim came with 16-inch wheels, while 17-inch were augmented for the SLE. SSEI models got 17s as well. An available head-up display projected the speed of the car, turn signals, as well as stereo information onto the windshield. GM's 3800 Series 2 V6 powered the SE and SLE, cranking out 205 horsepower. Moving up to the SSEI, buyers got a healthy, supercharged variant of the 3.8-liter V6. The supercharged version of the 3800 Series 2 is otherwise known as the L67. The L67 utilized the Eaton Generation 3 M90 supercharger with a 3.8-inch pulley, a larger throttle body, along with different fuel injectors. It even ran different cylinder heads, not to mention different lower intake manifold and pistons than what would be found on the Bonneville SE and SLE's L36 engine. Both engines utilize the same engine blocks. However, compression is reduced from 9.4 to 1 in the L36 to 8.5 to 1 in the L67. The SSEI ran the heavy-duty version of the standard transmission, which was paired with more powerful engines, such as the L67 and other GM models with V8s. The supercharged version created 240 horsepower at 5,200 RPM and 280 pound-feet of torque at a relatively low 3,600 RPM. Buyers had their choice of front bucket seats or a split front bench seat. The bench seat models, of course, came with a column shifter and were only available on the SE. Out back, the trunk was large with about 18 cubic feet of storage space. A small pass-through led from the rear passenger compartment to the trunk. The LeSabre, which was America's best-selling full-size car at the time, was planned to be discontinued at the end of the 2005 model year, with the final LeSabre rolling off the Lake Orion, Michigan assembly line in mid-2004. In early 2005, General Motors made an announcement stating the Bonneville would also be discontinued, and there would not be one for the 2006 model year. In late spring 2005, the final Bonneville rolled off the assembly line. Throughout its final model year, 2005, just 12,000 Bonnevilles were sold. Throughout the history of the Bonneville, there were times when it came with a big V8. From 1958 to 1986, the Bonneville brought to the table rear-wheel drive and 8-cylinder power. Keeping with the trend, in 1987, the Bonneville downsized and adopted the front-wheel drive configuration. Along with swapping its drive wheels, the Bonnie also augmented V6 power, which, for the next 17 years, would be its largest engine offering. That all changed in 2004. Enter the Bonneville GXP, which returned the nameplate back to its V8 roots. The GXP effectively replaced the supercharged SSEI in the Bonneville's lineup, so the trim levels offered for the 2004 model year were the SE, SLE, and now the GXP. The new V8 in the Bonneville GXP was sourced from Cadillac, the familiar dual overhead cam Northstar V8. In the GXP, the compact 32-valve 4.6-liter mill generated 275 horsepower and 300 pound-feet of torque, a significant increase over the standard Bonneville's engine. The Northstar V8 was mated to a 4-speed automatic, with the GXP wearing 18-inch 5-spoke wheels wrapped in Goodyear tires. Speaking of 4-speed automatic, this time around, a transmission with higher power handling capabilities was employed for the GXP. This particular transmission had debuted in the Elante in 1993, when it itself got the Northstar engine, and which had just so happened to be the Elante's final model year. The particular transmission was developed for use with V8-powered front-wheel drive cars, specifically for the Cadillac Northstar engine. The Cadillac division had exclusively utilized this transmission until the arrival of the 1995 Oldsmobile Aurora. If you haven't watched our Aurora episode, be sure to check it out. The Aurora was powered by the 4-liter version of the Northstar V8, which was mated to this particular transmission as well. It wouldn't be until 2004 when Pontiac finally got its hands on this transmission to be used in the Northstar-powered Bonneville GXP. Despite the GXP only being a few tenths quicker than the prior SSEI, the GXP V8 had a broader spread of power. Torque was readily available and was supplied in a smooth, even flow without any of the highs and lows of the supercharged engine. As a bonus, it even had an awesome exhaust note. The Northstar engine made a nice rumble. All of this, in conjunction with a firm but not crude ride, gave the GXP an enthusiastic personality, something that wasn't all that common for the typical full-size cars of the day. The maneuverability was good for a large sedan, thanks to the sport-tuned, all-independent suspension. Understeer was mild, even when pushed hard, despite the car's hefty size. The GXP's standard StabiliTrak stability control system helped maintain that level of adroitness even on the roughest pavement. On the outside, the GXP had got visual upgrades to make it look lower and meaner. The front fascia was revised, the tail lamps were cleaned up, and the rear skirts hugged the ground, making it look lower, while chrome exhaust tips hinted at the car's sporting nature. The rear deck also got attention, receiving a low-key spoiler, yielding a cleaner yet aggressive look for the sedan. On the inside, the cockpit also got its share of upgrades, with suede inserts on the door panels and seats. The dash was typical, however, with sporty carbon fiber look trim. The SSEI was phased out after the 2003 model year to make way for the GXP, but it was business as usual for the SE and SLE. For the 2004 model year, the SE still sported its clean, toned-down look, while the SLE still retained the appearance of the discontinued SSEI. So in other words, by the 2004 model year, you could get all 3 Bonneville trims, each with its own unique look. The 2004 SE, the 2004 SLE, and the 2004 GXP. But to make things simpler, for the 2005 model year, the SLE trim had ditched the old SSEI's appearance and had now adopted the GXP styling, getting that model's front and rear treatment as well as newer lower body side design. As another little tidbit, I'd also like to point out the 2000 to 2001 SE sported a different fascia from the 2002 to 2005 SE. I always liked the design of this generation Bonneville. I can recall seeing a 10th generation Bonneville for the very first time in a parking lot way back in 1999, and I thought it was an awesome looking sedan back then. It was big, sporty, and looked expensive. I remember walking alongside the car and peering through the driver's side window and seeing how the interior made such a visual impact, especially by 90s standards. All I remember seeing were the air vents and how wild they looked in an interior back then. Adjusted for inflation, this car's price tag would be in the vicinity of $55,000 in today's money. This full-size sedan, in my opinion, has aged very well and still looks great today, considering the fact that its design dates back to 1996. Most owners are proud of their cars and say that the 3800 engine has held up, which is no surprise. They have the potential to be bulletproof with the right preventive maintenance. Have you owned a 10th generation Bonneville? If so, let us know which model and year. As always, thanks for coming out to this show, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Until next time, this is your host Rob, and thanks for tuning in to Antique Tags.